Hey guys, welcome back. It's walnut season, and if you know what you know that means we're making tinctures and we're making salves and other good things. So, biggest cautionary tale with walnuts is they are incredibly staining, right? So if you've ever gone out and gotten them when they're all mushy on the ground and stuff, you'll notice your fingertips will come back all black. So make sure, one, that you're collecting these and they're still, unripe. They're nice and firm. And then make sure when you do go to process these that while they're still, unripe, once you start cutting into them, they actually start to oxidize quite quickly and they'll start to brown up on you. So you want to make sure that you're wearing old clothes, something you don't care about. Preparing your counter space, whatever you're using, use an old knife, like all that type of stuff. Sorry, we've got a nasty storm rolling in here, so we'll see how this video turns out. So what you're gonna want to do, like I said, you're gonna make sure that these are unripened. You're gonna cut the rind off of the nut inside, and then you'll notice that when you cut into it, it's white and it literally turns brown immediately. So again, wearing gloves, prepped out our station, and then you're going to fill your jar up about 3/4 of the way. So just a normal size mason jar, fill it up about 3/4 of the way, no matter what size jar you're using, about 3/4 of the way. And then you're going to cover your black walnuts with, and for mine, I'm using a nice organic vodka that I found. Because again, if I'm going to be taking it internally, I prefer organic and clean alcohols. If I was only just doing topical, probably wouldn't bother me as much. This can be used internally, topical, for a whole bunch of different ways. I'm going to link an article below that I found when I first started looking into this a while back, and they've actually updated it a couple times. Really helpful information. Has the benefits of walnut tinctures, what you use them for, how long you use them, the side effects if you use them too long, like a lot of good information. Again, just because we're making something natural doesn't mean that we can't actually make things that were harmful if we use them inappropriately, right? I also have taken some and I have cut them up and I have them infusing in an olive oil over here. So what I'm actually doing is I have water in the crock pot, and then I have my jar inside. This top is just here to prevent anything from going in it while it's doing this. It'll sit in this state for about 2 to 3 hours while it kind of infuses, and then once it's done, I'll turn it off, I'll cap it, I will stick it in a dark place for about 5 to 7 days, and then I will strain out the hulls and I will mix it with beeswax and other stuff to make my black walnut salve, right? So this one is your black walnut tincture with alcohol. You can also make this into a glycinate too. So if you're alcohol sensitive, right, the link below will actually have that recipe for you too. If you're alcohol sensitive, then you can do it that way, and you can still make the salve with the olive oil, and you can make the glycinate, so that way you can get the internal properties and the external properties. If you want to make all three, right, so you can have however you want to do it. You don't need to make gallons upon gallons upon gallons. When you really start to research, you'll realize that it really doesn't take a lot. You're not going to use it long term when you do actually have to use it. So this much will actually last us quite a while around here. Probably even give some to friends. You can see how, this has been in there maybe 5-10 minutes, and you can see how it's already starting to darken up nicely. Make sure whatever jar or whatever you're putting this together in that you are okay with losing it, because this stuff stains so well. It'll actually stain your glass too. So don't use grandma's favorite mason jar to do this process. If you have an amber jar that you're okay with using, then you can use an amber jar as well. It is always better to tincture in amber jars, but for the purpose of this, I wanted y'all to see how dark it gets. If you don't have an amber jar, because they are kind of expensive, you can still use a normal jar like this, but just make sure that it stays in a complete dark suspended space the entire time. You're going to want to put it somewhere that you remember it, right? So mine usually sits right next to my plates. So when I make my dinner at night, I open up the door, I'm like, oh, there are my tinctures, and I shake them all and I grab my plate and I go back to making dinner. out of sight, out of mind, right? So if you put it somewhere you don't ever go in your kitchen, you're probably not going to remember to come back and shake it daily. Now, tinctures are forgiving to a certain extent. So if we miss a day here or there, we don't have to throw it out, but we do want to make sure we are shaking it from time to time to make sure everything's kind of moving the way we want it to move and everything's mixing together quite nicely. I would go through the benefits and everything about it, but if I went through all the benefits and what we can use this for, then I would probably be banned for all eternity to the backlog of YouTube somewhere. So the link below is going to be very helpful for how you use it, when you use it, the side effects, blah, blah, blah. And remember, if you have a nut allergy or you're allergic to walnuts, please don't make this tincture. So, because, you would think common sense, but some people get really excited about doing stuff and they forget, right? So I highly recommend before you strip your trees completely bare that you put some of this away as a tincture. You're going to want to make sure they're hard and unripened. Once they start to ripen a little bit, it's okay if they're starting to kind of get soft a little bit, but just watch for worms inside of it and stuff like that, because we don't want to make worm tinctures. So just proceed with caution. Read the article below, and I highly recommend printing that article out, because if you're like me, you have bookmarked and saved so many links that sometimes your links have links, and then you lose a link, and then you forgot where that link was, and you think this is the link you really wanted to use, but that's not the good one. It's over here. So the ones I really like, I print off, and I keep them in a binder, and they have tabs on them, and some, black walnut, lavender, like all my herbs and stuff, because you always want to update your arsenal, especially when you're starting to learn. And if you're new to this, you don't want to go spending $300 and $400 on books here and there to make sure that you have it. So if you're just starting to mess with this stuff, sometimes just printing the articles is a good place to start. So I found this one very beneficial, very knowledgeable. So I put it below so you guys don't have to do the legwork. So I highly recommend adding this one to your arsenal, and once you read the article below, you will understand why. So I now have a lot of apples to process on this nasty rainy day, so that's where I'm headed to next. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know your feedback on what you do if you do this, if you've made it before, what you've used it for, or what you think about the article. Make a comment below. Appreciate you guys stopping by. Have a great day.